Hey, it's Abstraction Game here. I figured that if you're working in software development on any role, or if you want to, there are in general four distinct skill sets that you should learn and constantly improve. There's some overlap between these four skill sets, and also, I guess, depending on what role are you trying to get or having, one of the four might be a priority, but it never pays to totally neglect the other three. And these four skill sets are coding and so coding skills and credentials and things that prove that you're good in coding. Another set of skills is, let's say, projects and managing projects. And depending on your role, if you're a single person developing some open source library or just your app, this would be deciding what dependencies will you use, what language, which technologies, how will you glue all that together. Or if you're just a person who's working on tasks, this would include all the non-coding related skills or related to coding, but the skills that are not coding itself. So bash scripting, or just installing stuff, figuring dependencies managers, also choosing which library will you use, or which package manager, or do you want to use Docker or not for any particular use case, or do you want to use IDE, or do you want to just use a text editor and compiler separately, or maybe you're gonna use Jupyter and all the things related to your setup, to use virtual environments for Python, or maybe you prefer Conda, virtual env wrappers. So all these decisions. The third aspect is the theoretical knowledge, and this could be mathematics, this could be in data science or machine learning. You need to have a lot of skills related to theoretical knowledge of statistics and linear algebra, calculus, or maybe this could be knowledge about how compilers work, how processor works, how different levels of memory and caches work. And usually you don't need this knowledge during your day-to-day work, but sometimes really rarely you need, and this might be single area that distinguish senior developer from a junior person, that maybe some problems are really rare, but then only the people with good theoretical background can solve these problems, and they have to be solved. And the fourth area is people skills and also reputation you have, relations you've built, the ability to participate in discussions and not to be afraid to voice your opinions, and also abilities to actually compromise, or maybe recognize that you've went into wrong alley and you should back off, and how to negotiate salary, how to negotiate deals, and when you're signing your contract, which things are okay, which are not, and how to negotiate them. And this also includes people skills in the sense of managing yourself and your habits and your perfectionism or lack of, and all these areas. And the problem is that usually you need all four, but depending on your position, you will get regular practice in only one or two. So, for example, if you're a developer which works in Scrum and gets a constant stream of well-defined tasks, then maybe you mostly need coding and some project skills. Or if you're working with machine learning, maybe you mostly need theoretical knowledge and project skills and maybe people skills to contact with people who label data or to understand the requirements, but then you get very little practice in coding, so your code becomes ugly and you code slowly, but this doesn't mean that you can get away with not being a good coder. Eventually you will have to write code, and then you won't be very good at it. So it's really beneficial to identify where are your shortcomings in these four areas and practice them deliberately. And that's why I want to show you HackerRank, because I believe this is one of the best possible ways to practice coding and also theoretical knowledge, but mostly coding. And I strongly believe that if you want to learn coding or practice coding, this sort of web pages in which you solve problems in your browser, they're the best because you only focus on coding. So if you're a beginner, if you just want to learn, for example, writing in coding in Python, this might be the best starting point for you, because you won't have to get through all the boilerplate problems like installing stuff, configuring stuff. You can just focus on coding. And I will pretend now that I'm a beginner, has never written in Python, which is obviously not true, just to show you around and how this whole thing works. So you get this set of problems. I've started the easiest one I was able to find, and you get a small code editor, and you just click run code for your code to be evaluated, and you submit it to get score and maybe pass the challenge. So the task here is just print hello world, which is, I guess, the easiest possible task in any language. So this will probably pass some test cases, in this case just one test case, but usually you will get some test cases that are visible to you and a lot which will be invisible and will be used to decide whether or not you should get some points. And I strongly believe that just trying to solve as simple problems here might be much more effective than just reading a book on programming in Python. And then, of course, you will need to Google a lot. if you don't know the answer or can't just figure it out with your intuition, you will visit Stack Overflow. You might need to open some books to understand the problems you're facing. Also, you can use discussions, although I would always recommend to at least try to solve the problem by yourself, just with your intuition, and then if you're really stuck, then you can open the discussions tab, because people will usually just give you answers in here straight away, and this way you could gain a lot of points, but that's not the point of the exercise. You're not supposed to overfit to this matrix, because it won't scale. Eventually you will face the problems which you cannot cheat through, so it doesn't pay to try it. But even if you end up finally copying some code from here, pasting it in the problem, and you get the points, this still doesn't mean you're done. Then you really should pay attention to understanding each line of the code you've copied. So let's do it just for the sake of exercise, and then probably you should come back to the problem you've cheated through, maybe in a day or two or immediately, and try to write your solution from scratch again. So at least you will know that you learned the solution by heart, at least. Of course, it's somewhat better to learn how to figure the solution by yourself than learning solutions for as many problems as you can by heart, because eventually you will find problems that you cannot find solution for in the internet, although it might be rare, but it will happen. But at least at the very minimum, you should remember the solution and be able to recreate it after some time passes. And okay, so this is one approach to how to start your adventure with coding in a language without any configuration related tasks, which you will probably have to do anyway at some point, but it's easier to start when there is no entry barrier. And another application of this web page and similar web pages is that you can practice here a lot. You can practice algorithms and data structures. You can practice hard logical problems, and this is also super useful, super funny. It's also somewhat it's like an RPG game in the sense that you get the points and you can measure performance, and you can only move up, you cannot move down, even though you might forget some of the knowledge you get. And this is really great. And if you just want to snag some practice in free moments, maybe you're an advanced developer, maybe you're even in senior position, but you don't code as often as you'd like to because you're either solving people skills or um, or you're tech leading, so it means a lot of project discussions, or you're doing some machine learning or statistics, which only requires you to do very short snippets of code, but you still want to be able to do this efficiently, and if a need arises to write more, you want to be ready, then this is a great way to just have this short or longer, depending on the difficulty of the problem, snacks of problem solving. So basically, to sum up, I really recommend HackerRank and similar web pages as the way to practice coding. I don't know any single better approach or method. I mean, you can do your projects in spare time, produce libraries, release them as open source, or release paid apps, but then you will have to take care of all the 4 areas, or maybe 3 areas. You will have to take care for promotion, maybe. You will have to advertise, you will have to figure license, you will have to make project choices. But if you just want to practice, get the easiest way to just practice coding, this is the best way, in my opinion. And by the way, I'm not sponsored, obviously, by HackerRank or anybody at this stage of having fun with YouTube, but just so you know, I'm just a fan of this webpage. No, I have no interest in recommending it, except for maybe getting more people in the same platform that I like to use. Okay, I guess that's it. Thanks a lot.